Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to remind you each and every day, it expands our base. I want to talk about the Cheneys, the threat of Donald Trump, and several other issues that, frankly, I think are important. Let's begin with the fact that we had a most unusual moment in American politics. Former Vice President Dick Cheney, a conservative Republican, a former White House Chief of Staff, a former member of Congress, a member of the Republican leadership in Congress, the man who would have been Speaker of the House had he not chosen to become Secretary of Defense, a man who is absolutely a solid conservative. Dick Cheney has endorsed Kamala Harris. He didn't endorse Kamala Harris because he agrees with her on all of the issues. He endorsed Kamala Harris because he believes that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. This is an important moment coming from a serious Republican leader, a man who has served his country as White House Chief of Staff, member of Congress, Secretary of Defense, a man who was Vice President of the United States, and granted a controversial vice president, but nonetheless, a man who served his country. Dick Cheney wrote a book. I have an inscribed copy of the book here in my library. It is called Kings of the Hill. He wrote it with his wife. And when you read Dick Cheney's story of the House of Representatives and the speakers of the House of Representatives, you understand how important Dick Cheney really is in terms of believing in democracy, believing in our form of government. People have asked me, will this make a difference in terms of the presidential election? I don't know, but I can tell you that Dick Cheney is a man with whom I have had great disagreements over the years, but a man for whom I have great respect. I wish that his former chief, George W. Bush, would have the courage of Dick Cheney. George W. Bush says there will be no endorsement in this campaign. That is an abdication of a responsibility as a former president of the United States. Mr. President, if you're listening, stand for your country, please, above your party. And now I want to say a word about a threat to democracy. This morning I listened to the news with great interest and care, and I listened to Donald Trump again suggest that the presidential election of 2020 was stolen, but more than that, that the election of 2024 might be stolen as well. He has said that if he is elected president of the United States, he will prosecute those who he believes prevented him from being president 4 years ago, and certainly those who he believes, if he wins the election, tried to prevent him from being president this year. I want you to understand clearly and precisely, I don't care if you're a liberal or a conservative. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. My question is, are you an American? Daniel Webster once stood before the Senate of the United States and said, I speak to you today not as a Northern man or as a Southern man. I speak to you today as an American. And that's the way I speak, my friends, as an American. Someone who is sincerely concerned about the future of our country. The latest polls this morning show the election very close. Indeed, no one can predict who will win. But the other critical thing about the election will be what happens tomorrow night on a stage where Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will meet face to face for the first time. That's right, for the first time. They've never met before. And so we will be watching not only what they say and what they do and how they look and how they interact, but what the real meaning is for the United States of America. This is an election which we should understand as putting America at the crossroads, which way will we go? I want to make another comment that I think is important. I spent the weekend in Los Angeles. A cousin of mine passed away, and so we were at the funeral. When we stepped off the plane, it was 114 degrees in Los Angeles. When we left yesterday, it was 106 degrees. And then I opened this morning's San Francisco newspaper and saw vanishing fog raises climate questions. I want to say that although there are no immediate solutions, the question of climate should play a central role in the discussion which takes place on the debate stage tomorrow. Why? Because our climate, what is happening to our world, the global warming, which is a fact, not a myth, has become the central question of the future of our very existence. I know that we are all focused on the day-to-day politics. I certainly am. But I want everyone to be aware that there is an existential threat beyond politics, and that has to do with the security of climate in our world. And that, of course, does not include the tragedies taking place around the world, whether in the Middle East or the Ukraine, or frankly, so many places it is hard to enumerate them all. But what it does mean is that I hope that tomorrow night, when Trump and Harris meet, that they will discuss the issues in a clear, candid, frank fashion. It is not the debate itself which will resolve the issues. But we now know that when America goes to the polls in November, it will be a clear choice between two visions of the future, two visions of our lives, two visions of our world. It is my sincere hope and belief that the American people will rise to the occasion. Let me make clear, I have always tried to give candid political commentary, but I believe with absolute conviction that the defeat of Donald Trump is essential to the future of democracy. We'll talk more tomorrow. There'll be more news, of course, to analyze. And on Wednesday morning, we will most assuredly talk about the winners and the losers in the great debate of 2024. But in the meantime, this is John Rothman. I thank you for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World. I want you to make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, sharing an episode with a friend or colleague, so we can continue to grow and expand. And my special appreciation to all of you who offer me so many comments and commentary. Oh boy, that's what makes it fun. And of course, my deep appreciation to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of Around the Political World with John Rothman, who makes it happen every single day. Can't wait for tomorrow, right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then. Around the Political World with John Rothman is proud to introduce our first sponsor. That's right, we have someone who loves what we do, and I have to tell you, I love what she does. Be Bold America is produced by KSQD, and of course, the person who leads us through these great discussions is none other than Jill Cody. She's an author, a radio personality, and she does one heck of a job of putting into focus major issues, from protecting democracy to our climate. Let me tell you, the topics on the podcast are serious. It's not for the faint of heart, but that's to say the show is for all of us. Be bold in America. In an election year, what can we do to increase discussion, debate, and the rest? I'll tell you what we can do. Listen to Jill Cody as she exposes all of us to the issues. You can tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you like to get your shows. So this is John Rothman, delighted, pleased, thrilled to endorse Jill Cody's wonderful program, Be Bold, America.